Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Military Financial Planning System. This is a spreadsheet designed to function like a clean, intuitive financial app built around military pay, TSP growth, and long-term financial planning. In this tutorial, I'll guide you through the setup process and show you how the dashboards automatically update to give you a clear, accurate view of your budget, spending, net worth, and retirement outlook. The first thing you're going to see when you open this model up is this home page. Obviously, it's going to right away say Military Financial Planning System. You'll have a navigation menu and instructions and assumptions. These instructions and assumptions are important to understand. You also have your user guide, which goes over pretty much everything else in here as well. The big things that you need to know from here is light blue cells are the only cells that you can interact with and enter data. Everything else, gray, any of this orangey color, this is all locked and all just auto-calculated or for visual purposes. Use drop-downs where provided, which is pretty much any cells with text or percentages. And do not overwrite any formulas. You shouldn't be able to anyway. For household types, this model supports both single income and dual income households. You can use a drop-down model to toggle in between either one of them. You can model return rates for 5%, 7%, and 10% returns. There is inflation adjustment. I'm assuming that you're using the Roth TSP, and I'm also assuming that after you leave the military, you will be combining your TSP and your Roth IRA into one retirement account. Other than that, the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory, assuming consistent employment, no early withdrawals, long-term average returns, 2.4% inflation, no catastrophic life events. Over here in the navigation menu, this is the easiest way for you to find what spreadsheet or what sheet you want to go to at a specific time. All of these are specific hyperlinks. You can see when I move my cursor over it, you'll get the little hand with the pointer. If you click any of them, it'll bring you to the sheet. All you have to do is click this home page toggle. For dashboards, like you just saw for these dashboards, all of the home page buttons are just to the right of the dashboard itself. For all of the rest of the working sheets where you input data, it's right up here in cell A1 on the top left. That's pretty much it for your home page. Next, we're going to move into our start here. All right, so this page is going to grab all of your basic information, and the rest of the system is going to use this moving forward. So pretty much just enter in all this data that pertains to you: active duty, reserve, National Guard, civilian, dual income, single income. If you press dual income, if you have a spouse, there will be a separate section that opens up for the spouse to enter their information that pertains to them. We will keep it in single income. Current base pay or drill pay for those who are Reserves National Guard. Same for civilian pay. If you are Reserve National Guard and you have a civilian job, enter your monthly pay there. Current age, how many years you've been in the service, how many years you think you have left. It'll automatically calculate your post-service age, retirement age, TSP percentage. Like I said, these are drop downs, so you can add whatever percentage you want. If you want to add a higher percentage or a different percentage than 5% increments, you can type it in as well. Same with the future 401k percentage. Have a percentage here even if you don't currently have a 401k. This is for the future. It's projecting that you will get a employment after the military that has one. Retirement type, blended retirement system if you're new to the Army, legacy if you've been around. Return rate, 5, 7, 10% returns. You can also type in any number if you please. Assumed yearly inflation, I wouldn't touch this unless in the future you know that average US inflation has gone up or down. Yearly savings numbers, Roth savings. This is your maximum contribution you're allowed to do every year for those under 50. I recommend, if you don't already do that you find a way to make sure that you're maxing this every year. Your TSP savings are automatically calculated based off of your base pay and your TSP percentage. The same would be done for your 401k savings. And your brokerage savings, you just type in how much you want to put in per year. And then in the bottom here, it'll tell you how much per year from your money you're putting into investments. You'll see these sandbox regions in several places around the software. What this is free cells that have been allotted to you to do whatever calculations on the side that you want to. So, for instance, say you want to know how much base pay you get a year. You can just simply type in equals C5 times 12. It'll do it for you. For those of you who are familiar with Excel, you can do whatever you want with it. For those who are not so familiar with Excel, you can start to learn or not use this section at all. It's really up to you. Like I said, blue cells are the only things that you can interact with. Every other cell, even these white cells, you cannot touch. So that's why these sandbox regions are here. That's really it for the Start Here page. We're going to move into our general budget next. All right, general budget. So this is where you put in your proposed monthly budget to yourself. Your base pay will automatically be carried over, same with any civilian monthly pay that you inputted. Here you will also enter any additional allotments on your LES that you receive, BAH, OHA, BAS, COLA. On your deduction side, make sure that it equals the numbers on your LES. Input the proper federal taxes. Your Social Security, Medicare, and TSP will automatically be calculated. Those are simple functions. SGLI, state taxes, AFRH, make sure to put in the correct number for you. And then at the end, make sure that your deductions are the same as what's on your LES, and it will then give you your total monthly takeaway pay. And then multiply that number by 12 for an estimated yearly pay. Over here on the right is where you input all of your expenses or proposed expenses for the month. Fixed expenses up top, obviously your reoccurring ones, the ones that are the same every month. Subscriptions as well, those are also fixed expenses, and variable expenses, things that you don't know exactly how much you're going to be spending on, but you're putting a cap on each section. You'll also have savings over here. These are calculated automatically based off of your Start Here page, telling you how much a month you have to put away to meet your goals. You also have one more piece of blank spot down here if you want to set up a separate savings. For instance, you want to save $200 a month for Christmas throughout the year so that by the end you have a good little nest egg for gifting family, friends, and kids. Totally up to you, but it's there for your use. Budgeting stats over here, it's pretty much telling you everything about your budget that you set up, how much at the end of the month you'll have left over, going all the way down the list for all of these separate categories. There's an entire dashboard near the end that visualizes your budgeting stats and your cash goal savings in a visual format. So we'll go over this a lot more in depth once we get to it. The only other thing to input here is how much you currently have in your cash savings between checking, savings, any high yield savings account, like everything combined, just put in the number. And obviously this is just an example. If you are dual income, it will open up a new block down here for the spouse. Spouse will also have a separate savings section. So pretty much spouse will enter all of her information in, and then you will combine everything into one budget, and then it will give you an entire household budget for the month. That's pretty much it for the general budget. Let's move on into pay and TSP projections. So pay and TSP projections. At first, this is going to look a little overwhelming, I'm sure, but I guarantee you it makes sense. This top row up here, this is the current year, what you're doing right now, and then everything down here are the years following of how many years you said you were going to be remaining in the Army. So for this example, the Start Here page says we're starting with 1 year in service and we're doing 19 more. So if you say, okay, currently at 1 year and we're doing 19 years, total for 20 years for a career, it's going to tell you what year you're going to hit these different time and services at, what age you will be. And here in column E and F is when you start inputting information. You're going to guesstimate what pay grade you're going to be at each specific year. So obviously, if you're an officer and you've been in for 1 year, you're going to be an 01. That's pretty easy to estimate. You're going to have a pretty easy timeline to estimate when you're going to hit 02, 03. If you don't know much about promotion timelines, you can scroll over here to the right. And this is a good guideline for a pretty standard promotion timeline for officers. If you are enlisted, simply click this box, hit the drop down, and toggle over to the enlisted side. It's a little bit harder to predict when you're going to promote in ranks, but really it's just a guideline. Going back over here, you're going to pretty much hit the drop down, enter your pay grade all the way down, and then from there, you're going to be able to go and grab your monthly base pay. You're going to know all the information. All you need to know is what pay grade you're going to be and your time in service at that time. So you're going to go to the 2026 pay chart that's included, and you're going to say, okay, 1 year in service or 2 years or service and less, and 01. That right there is the base pay I want. Obviously, it's already inputted here, but you're just going to go down the line and input all the base pays for however many years that you have left. If you said that you had like 10 years left, I'll just show it here. Let's just say you have a total of 10 years that you're going to be in the Army. You're going to see all this like leftover data. You can just delete that. It's not going to do anything for you. Obviously, we're going to keep it for this example, but just fill out to where your data stops for your specific outlook. This is one of the most time-consuming parts of this entire template, but you're really only going to have to change this once a year once you get this down, and it's pretty simple once that happens. From there, on every single row, it's going to calculate your annual base pay, that TSP percentage that you had inputted in the Start Here page, and it's going to give you your annual TSP contribution. If you're blended retirement system, it'll give you your match. If you're legacy, you don't get one. And from there, the total amount that's going in your TSP annually. If you've been in the military for some time and you have a TSP, this is where you input the starting year balance of the current year. And then from there, all the information that is needed has been inputted, and it's going to just run the numbers all the way down until you have your projected TSP balance by the time you're done with your time in service. This is the most accurate way to project this year after year because obviously your pay is changing. One of the cool things that you can do with this model here is manual TSP percentage. For example, right now you might not have enough expendable income to want to contribute more than 10% into your TSP, but let's say by the time you're hitting 3 years of service and you hit that pay bump, you want to start contributing more. You can do that and you can model that. You can say you want to do 15% for a couple of years and then maybe bump it up to 20% for the rest of your career. That allows you to kind of override the TSP percentage that you're currently using and use a different one in future years if you want to change it down the line. So obviously that gives you a much better number if that's your plan on changing that in the future. Any other additional information over here? TSP contribution limit, the government puts a cap on how much you can put into your TSP every year, just like a 401k. As you can see down here, you're hitting the limit. The reason I included this is as the years go on, when the government changes this cap due to inflation or any other considerations, all you have to do is type in the new number here. If they move it up to 26,000 next year or 30,000 in 10 years, whatever it is, you can always keep this model up to date. Manual return rate input. If you feel the need to change the return rate, the average return rate on this model, and only this model alone, then you can type in anything else. Let's say you want to type in 8%. Only the TSP will change to 8% return rates, and the rest of your accounts that are going to be modeled here, your Roth, your brokerage, your 401k, they will stay at whatever is on your start here page, your 7% in this example. So it allows you, and you will have this manual return rate input option for every separate account. So you can, if you feel like it gives you a more accurate look, to give each different account a separate annual return rate based off of maybe historical values, what they've been doing over time. Just like in the general budget, I'm going to delete this column and put it back to standard. Just like in the general budget, if you have dual income, there's going to be an entirely separate sheet down here for your spouse. If she's dual military, him or her. If they are not military, then just ignore this sheet and it just works just fine either way. That's pretty much it for your TSP projections. Next, we're going to move on into our retirement outlook. So this is your retirement outlook. It's going to really give you a pretty all-encompassing picture of what your finances could look like by retirement. There are three major sections here, or three major accounts that are going to be modeled, four major sections. Your Roth, your brokerage, your civilian 401k, and then a breakdown of everything combined. There are three separate sections within your Roth section. There's a Roth IRA while serving, your TSP, which was modeled in the previous sheet, the numbers getting carried over from there, and your combined Roth IRA after serving. Like I said in the instructions and assumptions, I'm assuming that after you're done serving, these two accounts will be combined into one. First off, Roth IRA while serving. It'll automatically carry over whatever your yearly deposit is. Current age. This is the age that you're going to be leaving the Army. It'll reflect whatever age you're leaving the Army or whatever branch of service you're in. Your annual returns carries over. You can put in a manual return rate just like the last sheet, the pay and TSP projections. Right here, you enter the current value of your account, and it's going to give you what your account could be by the end of your Army career or your military career if all of these stand true. This will not be 100% accurate, obviously, but it's a good benchmark. Honestly, most people, if you're here and you're doing this and you care about your finances, most likely this number will be higher. TSP, like I said, carries over, and then it takes your TSP and your IRA and it adds them together into the present value of what it would be by the time you're out of the service. So it's the same age as when you leave the service, and it's still contributing that $7,500, finishing at 65 or whatever retirement age you put in. Keeping that return rate, you can also put in manual return rate here, and it's spitting out a future value of what your accounts could look like at 65 just for your Roth IRA and TSP combined. Obviously, that's a pretty big number. Like I said, if you care about your finances and you get ahead of time, you can do a great job in retirement. Next, for your brokerage, same thing. It's split up between while serving and after serving. The only reason I did this is so you can change your contribution. Let's say you get a higher paying job after the service, you can change that to a different number if you want to model separately. It's the exact same idea as the Roth, taking the present value of your account, spitting out a future value by the time you're done with the service. Doing the same thing, taking the same number and starting right off where you left at the age that you leave the service and pushing it out to 65. And this is the number. Remember, this is a brokerage taxable account, so this is pre-tax numbers here because this is a taxable account. Civilian 401k, this is the hardest one to model and probably the least accurate for several reasons. One, employers have many different rules. Just like the Army has their rules, different employers can change how they want to do their 401k. You can switch between a Roth traditional, and if you never get a 401k, you can just turn it off. But for now, we're doing Roth. Put in a projected annual salary by the time you get out of the service. If you're Reserves, National Guard, and you already have a 401k in your current civilian job, this drop down here will reflect whatever monthly pay that you put in your Start Here page multiplied by 12. So it just is an easy way to input your annual salary. Your percentage is carried over. This is the max annual contribution for a 401k, just like in the pay and TSP projection sheet. That can be changed with time. It'll give you your annual contribution. Match you can change based on your employer. And it pretty much does the same thing from there. Present value, if you have one, put in the present value, and then it gives you a possible present value of your 401k or future value by the time you hit 65. Now, this is all great information, but what does that actually mean put together? That's what the breakdown is for. So this is the breakdown sheet. Like I said, in the general budget sheet, there is a dashboard that visualizes a bunch of this information. So we will go over that a lot more in depth at that point. But really for this, I want to go over returns at retirement. Obviously, once you hit retirement, you're not going to be contributing to your accounts anymore. So you want to decide if you want to move accounts, your portfolio into a more generalized and less risky, something that maybe gets a little bit less returns but is less volatile. That's up to you how you want to do it. It'll add everything up for you, give you numbers of how much you can withdraw yearly and monthly based off of a percentage withdrawal. You can change this on the dashboard. We'll get into that then. This is really the big thing here. Additional allotments, pension, Social Security, and disability. If you're a cynic and you think pension's going to go away or Social Security is going to go away, you can turn it off. But other than that, pension gets calculated over here. Just like over in the pay and TSP projections, you have a chart here that will kind of give you a guesstimate of what grade you'll likely be at by a year in service, enlisted and officer. So if you're officer that gets out at 20 years, you're most likely going to be a lieutenant colonel, 05. So you just go back over to the pay chart and pull that base pay for that year and that rank. Obviously, that is not 100% accurate because the military does a high 3 system, but it's a pretty good guesstimate. And obviously, by the time you hit that rank, base pays will have changed a lot by then. So this is really the best guess. It'll automatically calculate how many years of service you'll have, what percentage based off of BRS or legacy, give you a pension amount based off the base pay. And then from here, it's taking the yearly inflation and moving this number, which is in present value, out to a future value based off of that inflation. So obviously right now, this is toggled for inflation adjusted value. When you toggle it off to a pure future value, this will be returning that $13,000.32. Actually, let me do that right now just to show you guys. Go home page, retirement dashboard, future value, and then retirement outlook. Here we are. Okay. So now, as you can see, is returning this $13,000.32. And same with everything else. It's all pushed out into that future value based off of inflation. You can also get a pension based off the National Guard. It's assuming you earn 78 points per year, which is just a standard good year for 20 years or however many years. That pretty much means that you did all of your drills for the year and you went to annual training. If you have additional deployments or active duty time that you want to add on top of those retirement points, you can manual enter retirement points. And from there, it'll calculate everything, inflation adjustment or present value, depending on what you want to look at. And then if you have disability, you can input that as well, and it will take it out to future value. Spit out how much you can live off of a month based off of your withdrawal percentage. Based off your withdrawal percentage, by the time you hit whatever age you input here, how much money you'll have in your accounts. And then max withdrawal means how much money can you draw and live off of a month, and for this cell specifically, and completely zero out all your accounts by that age, by this age. 90 in this example. If you change it to 95, then you'll have a different number. That is pretty much it for the Outlook retirement outlook. I know this is a very data heavy sheet. And then again, if you are dual income, the spouse will get an entirely separate sheet here with their own breakdown. And then there's also all the way down below here a combined outlook with everything put together between you and your spouse. With that being said, we're going to move on to our active spending chart. All right, so active spending, this is probably where you're going to spend most of your time on this spreadsheet, because this is where you input all of your daily expenses. Right here, this is just an example data for whenever you take over and you want to put in your own information, you just highlight everything that's in the blue. For example, you can use the Control-Shift arrow to the side and Control-Shift arrow down to highlight everything easily if you don't want to scroll down for 186 rows. And that just allows you to press the delete button and start fresh. But for this, you're going to put in date, what category. There's a drop down that has a bunch of different categories for you to enter, what type of expense it is, whether it's fixed or variable expense, obviously how much you paid for it, and notes. These are optional. You don't have to put anything down, but if you want to give yourself any reminder of what exactly it is you were purchasing, like for example, Subway, instead of just having fast food, concert tickets, whatever it is, that's just for you. No like data runs off of it. It's pretty easy to enter an expense. A good hotkey that are in your instructions as well is if you press the Control and the semicolon button at the same time, it will automatically enter today's date. And then you just go in and you say, let's just say we bought gas. That's obviously a variable expense. Paid $34. That's all it is. That's all it takes to input an expense line. So that's pretty much it. The biggest thing to know is that this is not a protected sheet. That is because in order for you to expand this table infinitely, all you got to do is grab this corner and drag down infinitely. It'll go pretty much as far as you need to forever for your entire expenses. If it gets too much for you and you don't like scrolling up and down, like you just saw, you use the control down arrow shortcut to go right to the bottom, and the control up arrow just to go back up to the top if you need to. No visuals or anything runs on this page. This is really just hard data input. And yeah, pretty simple. Next, we're going to move on to your debt tracker. So this is your debt tracker here. If you have any debts, if you're debt free, then you can just ignore this page. But if you have debts, car loans, mortgages, credit cards, anything like that, this is where you would input that information. Debt name, you can just name it whatever you want. There's no format for this, like this says 2021 Toyota Camry. Debt type, drop down here to put in any of these fields. Debt owner, if you're single income, it's always going to be personal. If you're dual income, you can toggle between spouse. Starting balance, how much did you originally take out? How much is the current balance? What the interest rate is? What the minimum payment is? If you put any extra payment a month on top of that, which you should be doing, and what date of the month is it due? This is just a reminder for you. From here, it'll automatically calculate the following fields. Monthly interest, how much it's accruing every month, how many months it's projected to take for you to pay everything off, projected payoff date based off of that, total interest remaining, how much extra are you going to pay throughout the lifetime of the loan than the original loan from this point on. And then snowball priority, it's pretty much going to tell you to, on priority of 1 and down, attack the one with the smaller balance. So this one has a smaller balance, so this one is the higher priority to get rid of first. This is the snowball method. There's another method called avalanche that you can use if you so desire, but this is just showing the snowball one because it has a higher success rate than the avalanche. That's pretty much it for the debt tracker. Next, we're going to move on into the net worth history. All right, net worth history. This is where you're going to input. This looks like a lot of data. I'll say first, it looks like a lot of data, but you're only going to put in one row a month at a time. So it really doesn't take that much time. This is an example of an entire year of doing this, so this is not going to be all at once. You're going to start with the date that you record it, whether or not it's you or your spouse putting this down. And then from here, you're going to put in just current values of all of your accounts, right? How much cash do you have between checking, savings, high yield savings account? What's in your Roth? What's in your TSP, brokerage? What is your current car value? If you have a home and any other assets, just put all your assets kind of combined in this last column. From here, it'll automatically total up your current assets, and then you're going to do the exact same thing for your debt. You're just going to copy in what your current debts are, and that's it. You're just going to do that once a month. Like I said, this takes an entire year to input, so don't think that this is a huge task that takes forever. That's pretty much it for the net worth history. Next, we're going to move on to our budget dashboard. All right, so this is the first dashboard. All the dashboards are in a row here at the end. This is kind of where we get into the culmination of everything that you've inputted so far. This is going to summarize all of what you saw on that general budget page in a friendly manner. Also, this is perfectly fitted onto a printable sheet. So if you wanted to go over and print, you can just print this out on one sheet and keep a physical copy if you desire. It's going to show you your net pay, how much you get paid that month, how much you're trying to spend, based off that, how much you have left over. Daily spending allowance is all of your variable expenses multiplied by 365 divided by, multiplied by 12 divided by 365. Pretty much what it says is how much can you spend a day, and at the end of the month, you still have all of your savings and cash savings left over and fixed expenses paid for. So pretty much on a day-to-day basis, how much can you spend without, on average, without having to worry at all about hitting your savings and spending goals. This will break down how much a month you're putting into each account. And down here, also your total investment savings. This is just adding everything together. And then finally, over here, months to reach cash savings goals. This is kind of like a status bar down here. This is showing your current cash savings versus how much your 3 and 6 month cash savings are. These are just your total expenses for the month multiplied by 3 and 6. So it says here, based off of your current monthly savings, it'll take you 8 months to reach your 3-month goals and 33 months to reach your 6-month goals. This projection out here is a lot less accurate because before 33 months is up, you're going to be bumping up in pay or promoting or anything like that. So this will be changing, but it's just a good starting visual to kind of get a grasp of what your progress is for your cash savings. This is just showing you your spending versus your savings rate based off of your pay. How much are you spending? How much are you saving? How much of your spending is fixed expenses and how much is variable expenses? And then your savings split here based off of what you're putting into each account, how much is going based off of your percentage into your different investment accounts. That's pretty much it for your spending dashboard, or sorry, your budget dashboard. Next, we're going to move into your spending dashboard. All right, this spending dashboard is pretty analytic heavy. It lets you kind of look back very well on what your spending is. In this section up here, it's going to tell you what year you're looking at, what month you're looking at, and during that year and month, how much was spent. Over here is where you change what you're looking at. These are the slicers. If you've never seen them before or really used Excel, as long as you have the data, you can click between January, February, March, any month that you have data for. Obviously, this is last year, 2025. So we, in this example, we have an entire year worth of data. It's going to break down in that month what was spent and how much it was spent on, so you can easily see what your main categories of spending are. This spendings versus budget chart, this blue column here is the budget that you gave yourself for fixed and variable expenses all the way back in your general budget. So if you look at your general budget here, total fixed expense and total variable expense based off of your budget, that's how much you gave yourself to spend on those categories. And that's how much it's showing here. So you can see how well you're performing with your spending and your budget compared. If you go over the limit, as you can see we do here in November, your column will change to red, and that will let you know very, very clearly that at least for this month, you've busted your budget. So very good way to keep you on track. Also, this yearly spending trend up here just shows you throughout the year how your spending is looking. If you're increasing your spending, decreasing your spending, as you can see right here, you can see that little spike in November that lets you know that you were a little over budget. It's just a good visual for you. The next thing that's useful is the unfiltering buttons. So right now, obviously, we're looking at a specific year and a specific month, but you have the ability to unfilter. If you unfilter for months, then it's going to switch and look at all the months combined. So it's going to tell you you're now looking at the whole year. So now for the year 2025, you can see that you spent a total of $36,000. You can see how much total you spent on each section. It also multiplies your budget that you gave yourself by 12, so you can see if you hit your budget for the entire year. This chart won't change, obviously, because it's already looking at the entire year. However, you can also unfilter the year especially will be a lot more noticeable once you have several years of data collected. But if you unfilter for a year, you can see all time pops up. Your budgeting disappears here because obviously your budget changes wildly between the years, so it's impossible to kind of model what your budget is, but it'll tell you how much all time you spent on every category, everything, and obviously you can see it tagged on uh, those couple of data points at the end there for 2026. When you look at 2026, you can see this is kind of what it's going to look like in the beginning when you don't have much data, because really it's only been 2 months in the year so far, so you can see you're really still building out your data, but as it goes along, it's going to look a lot more like this. So that's pretty much your spending dashboard. It's very useful to look at your spending versus your budget and how well you're actually performing versus what you set out to do. That's pretty much it for the spending dashboard. Next, we're going to move into our net worth dashboard. So your net worth dashboard here, it's pretty simple, not nearly as complicated as your spending dashboard, but it gives you a good idea. It'll tell you when it was last updated, what your current net worth is, total assets, total debt. It'll tell you when you're projected to be debt free by, and also it'll tell you who you're currently looking at. In this specific example, I have no data for a spouse, but if you are a dual income household and you have a spouse, that spouse would be listed down here and you can switch to the spouse. If you unfilter, you can do a combined and it will kind of put everything together for you. But obviously this is just personal. This will show you a graph over time of your assets so you can see really how much your car value is compared to the rest, what your brokerage value looks like. So it's very good at telling you what your share of your net worth is and what it looks like over time. Obviously, in this example data, it's going up by 7% evenly every single period, so it just looks kind of like this, but in reality, it's going to look a lot more like a curve, or it's going to look a lot more inconsistent. So you'll be able to have a better idea once you actually input your values. It's the same exact idea down here for debt. Going to see how much debt you have for each section, and as time goes on, it should be going down. Like I said, for the budget dashboard, it's the same thing for the spending dashboard, but you can print all of these out onto one sheet. That is it for the net worth dashboard. Next, we're going to move on into the retirement dashboard. All right, so this is your retirement dashboard. Right here, it'll tell you right away what account you're looking at. You can switch between spouse, personal, combined, whatever you want to look at the time. Withdrawal percentage, you briefly saw this earlier, but you can switch how much percent a year you want to take from your accounts. And just like before, you can also switch time value of money between future value and inflation adjusted. Right away, it'll tell you your grand total, how much money, taxable and tax-free, you have available to you. It'll show you what you have in tax-free, what you have in taxable, and then also a graphical picture of how much is kind of like spread out between your Roth IRA combined, brokerage, civilian 401k, how much you have in each. There's also a monthly allowance split. It'll show you of your monthly allowance, what is coming from where. So in this example, a third of it's coming from your pension, about a fourth, 40% of it, just under, is coming from your Roth. There's some money from Social Security, taxable money. Just gives you that total picture. And then also, if you keep to this withdrawal percentage, by the time you hit whatever age you inputted back in your retirement outlook, this is how much money you'll have left over for your heirs. Now, this is all future value. What I recommend that everyone does is looks at a future inflation adjusted future value, gives you a much better outlook of what that is because it gives you roughly today's money values. So you have a lot more of an idea of what you can do with $14,000 in today's money than what you can do with $35,000 in the future, right? So that's what I recommend everyone looks at. And that's kind of what I keep the toggle for myself on. That's pretty much it for the retirement dashboard. Next, we're going to move into your long-term projections. All right, your long-term projections. The reason I put this all the way at the back of the worksheet is because you're only going to do one line a year for each of your accounts. So you're really going to rarely be looking at this sheet, but over time it's going to become very useful. So obviously this is simple. What year it is, your age, whether it's you or your spouse. You're going to put in the beginning balance of your Roth for this table, what you contributed, and what it was at the end of the year. From here, as long as you didn't start with a beginning balance of 0, it will give you a growth percentage. So if you start with, for example, if you start with 0 and you put in your 7,500 and you end with, I don't know, 8,800, it'll tell you that you have to wait till next year. So you put in your 8,800 the next year, you put in your 7,500, and then let's say, I don't even know, just quick math, so you have 16,000, not 1,600, 16,000. And you'll say, oh, well, this year you actually lost 3%. Let's make that a better number, 17,000. There you go. You made 8%. So over time, it'll give you growth percentages per year, and then you'll also get an average return rate. This is useful because if you want to, you can take this average return rate for each of your accounts and you can input them into the manual return rate numbers for each of your accounts. So you can go back into your TSP and pay projections and you can put in your historical rate of return into here instead of just a random 7% that you guess, right? So it's really just up to you how you use this long-term performance, but it has the availability and the option of increasing the accuracy of your projections by a lot. And as you can see, there's a table for each of your accounts here, 401k, TSP, brokerage, and Roth. If you select dual income, so let's say you select that you're dual income, there'll be a separate average return rate that will calculate for the spouse. If you noticed earlier that it wasn't reflecting the average return rate, that's just because I hadn't put in the owner yet, because it was waiting for me to put that in. If we say that we've had 8,800, let's just put in the same thing, 8,800, 7,500, and 17,000, then you can see the spouse has an average return rate of 8%, and then you can change that to personal. So that's pretty much it for the long-term performance. Make sure you're only putting in one per year, or it's going to kind of throw off your average and think that it's a separate year. Yes, pretty useful, good for long-term. Don't use it often. All right, let's move into our unprotect. All right, so this unprotect is just your final sheet here, has nothing to do with your retirement or pay projections, anything. This is just something that gives you the option if you need to change something to do so on your end. So, like I said before, if you try to edit anything, it'll tell you that you're on a protected sheet. If you, for whatever reason, feel the need to change something on your end, this will put you through the steps to do that on your end. You pretty much go up to review, hit unprotect, input the long-term wealth password, and then it will let you edit that specific sheet. You have to do it for any sheet individually that you want to change. So that's pretty much it for the unprotect. Obviously, that comes with a cost. If you unprotect it and you mess something up and you don't know how to fix it, you either have to be lucky enough to be able to undo your mistake, or you go back to wherever you purchased it from and re-download and start fresh. But um, just be careful if you do end up having to change something when you do, just not to overwrite any formulas. So that's it for the unprotect sheet. Real quick before I get into the outro, I did want to show one more quick tip for those who aren't super good with Excel. For this sheet, and any time that you want to take base pays from the pay chart and put it into something, the best practice for that is to take whatever you want, click it, Control C to copy, and when you go back, instead of Control Ving for paste, right click and under paste options, select the one that says 1, 2, 3. It'll paste just the values and it won't change the background color or reformat anything for you. It'll just put the numbers in. So I just wanted to put that in real quick before we get into the outro. All right, that's the complete overview for the military financial planning system. Once your information is entered, the dashboards will do a lot of the heavy lifting. It'll track your spending, project your savings, and show exactly where you're standing currently. Thanks for taking your time to watch, and I hope this system helps your financial planning becoming simpler and more confident. Thank you. If you haven't purchased this sheet and you wish to do so, there will be a link in the description below.